You're listening to TFP.
Here we go.
The fan's perspective.
Can you dig it?
Let's go. One time. Yes, y'all. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. This is the fan's perspective. I am your host, Charlietrix, and I'm here with my brother,
Remise. What's good, everybody?
Remise is in the building, and usually we have our boy jhanboom here. He is on vacation in the Dominican Republic right now.
Yep, visiting fam.
Shout out to jhanboom. Of course, vamanonos is in the building. Thank you for the setup. And it is October 28th, Saturday, beautiful day. We're going to start it off and jump right into these stories for you. You got anybody you want to shout out before we...
Not really. Have fun, jhanboom. We'll see you on the next one. And happy Halloween to everybody. It's approaching. You know I love horror movies, so shout out to all the channels playing horror movies for us.
Yeah, it's been fun with that whole thing. But let's get right into it. Episode 93, and I'm going to set it off with this story. Right now, you probably heard this. Everybody's talking about djenvy and Cesar Pina and this Ponzi scheme situation that's going on. I personally kind of don't really give a shit about this. And I'm totally covering this story to take advantage of the algorithm because it has been trending all over the place. And that's the only reason I'm going to talk about it today. But at least I'll be honest with you. You know, we were talking about this last week, and it is pretty foul. If you get into the details, for people who don't know, Cesar Pina is getting sued for, it's all real estate related fraud.
Took a lot of people's money, promised them crazy returns, and they're all asking, where's the money? We didn't get paid out. Basically,
that's the story. But the fact that Envy is a very, familiar face, and he was co-signing this guy, that's why this story got so big the way it was and everything. But I am blown away by how many people are sharing it and how big it got. And the funniest part about this story is all the video memes and clips of all the times Envy is in the room talking to different celebrities, or different celebrities are talking about, different guests are talking about the real estate investment, the possibility of investing. And then how many of them on the spot were like, that sounds like bullshit.
Yeah.
It's absolutely hilarious.
There's clips of people, like, Envy doesn't say anything, and then people bring up the real estate thing. He must have been heavy into it the way it seems with all these clips. And it's just, I think that's why it's so big, is because it's not like there's just one moment where somebody mentions the real estate thing that turned out to be a giant scam. But there's, like, clip after clip of funny people, of rappers, celebrities, actresses, all calling out this thing like Envy with the real estate, Envy trying to sell me a house in Patterson with Big Pun.
Yeah, it's funny because first of all, there's people putting together these clips are just going to town, and the internet is relentless. We'll see, like, and I thought when we were talking about this previously, maybe, you never know. Envy maybe just has nothing to do with it and didn't know what this other guy, Cesar Pina, was up to behind that. But then when you watch all the spliced together videos of him co-signing and really trying to encourage people to sign on, it just looks bad. And, man, I couldn't stop laughing. And again, this is the type of story I wouldn't give a shit about. But it's done great in the algorithm, and every time we put it on a video and type it in, it gets lots of clicks. So here you go, talking about this silly ass story.
Not only that, it's just funny as hell. And like,
it is funny.
There's a legitimate story to the fact that Envy is on one of the biggest morning shows. He's a figure in hip hop, and he was really bringing this guy around and introducing him to such a broad audience. This guy was conning everybody. Where when it gets to that stage, it's like it's a huge thing, and you've got these clips that once you recontextualize them with the whole Ponzi scheme, they look really ridiculous. So there's one conversation Envy's having where he's like, yeah, met this guy, he got out of prison, learned how to do real estate. The guy that got out of prison taught me real estate, and he said you don't do real estate with your money, you use other people's money. And when he says that whole thing, use other people's money, guy that was fresh out the pen, it just sounds funny after hearing that it's a Ponzi scheme,
Yeah. It's funny because in the beginning, the first thing you heard about was his call to Joe Budden, and Budden was like, that shit's a fucking Ponzi scheme. But aside from that, Cesar Pina finally did a response video. He came out and essentially when you start to watch the video, it's almost kind of like, well, whatever, It's almost kind of like I don't give a fuck. To the point of at one time he says like I'll go to court, if I go to jail. But when I get out, I'll still be rich.
Yeah, be like,
where will you be?
2-3 years in prison, and then I'll be in $1 million house when I get out. It's like, damn, what kind of a response is that?
Yeah,
I might lose this case.
The only good thing in the video that he said was in defense of Envy was that he said djenvy had nothing to do with this. He was never in the room with any of the deals that he's in court for. So one positive statement on Envy's behalf, but the rest of the video was it just sounded like
so
I don't give
funny.
a shit. Yeah, I scam people and I'll deal with it in court.
No, it's like the way he's doing it is so like Jewelsing, because he has parts where he's like, man, I was just trying to teach people, but I don't know if I'm going to keep teaching people because where are they? Why don't they have my back right now? And it's because you conned them, dude. They probably think they got scammed too. They're checking their books to make sure you didn't fuck them over, And it's like, this goofy is like, where are all my friends? Where are all the people I helped? And maybe you didn't do as much favors as you thought, and maybe you benefited from it more than you were expecting, and maybe that's why everybody's suing your ass.
Yeah.
I got 20 cases. I only had one case before that story hit the news. Now everybody's suing me because a bunch of people looked back and were like, yeah, something's up.
Yeah, I agree. The whole thing is wild, and I just can't believe how interested in this so many people is. It's just trending hard, and everybody wanted to get in on
The
it.
scandal that rocked the hip-hop world.
It is hilarious. It is hilarious.
Real estate in Patterson.
We'll see what happens, but screw that story anyway.
Can you dig it?
Let's move on to an even wilder, funnier story.
So from Patterson to the Vatican, Pope accepts resignation of Polish bishop after gay orgy sex scandal in the diocese. And that
Wait,
is
one more time.
That's from The Guardian. This one's The Guardian's headline. Pope accepts resignation of Polish bishop after gay orgy scandal in diocese. The New York Times has it titled, Polish bishop resigns after diocese is rocked by sex scandal. A little classier on the approach on that. But I'm going to pull some quotes from each because this is just wild to me. The Pope has accepted the resignation of a Polish bishop whose diocese has been rocked by reports of a gay orgy involving a male sex worker in a priest's apartment, as well as previous violent incidents involving his clergy. So multiple violent incidents with this clergy.
Jesus Christ.
It culminates in
violent incidents?
Violent incidents, and it culminates in a gay orgy where somebody overdoses on Viagra probably, or maybe gold pills, But yeah. This is from the New York Times version. I can't pronounce this man's name at all. I'm just going to make Gregor Kazak, the Bishop of Sosnowiec in southwestern Poland, announced his departure after one of his priests was placed under criminal investigation in connection with reports last month that he had organized a sex party during which a male prostitute lost consciousness from an overdose on erectile dysfunction pills.
What?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. This is going down in the church, huh?
There was sex parties going on. I've seen versions of this story where neighbors were saying there was funky stuff going on multiple nights and were complaining because it was sketchy. And, then they had this happen. And to me, to be honest, it's all consenting adults. This is a step up from some of the old Catholic Church scandals that we had become inclined to hear.
So this sounds like a pagan sex party.
Pagan? No, well, apparently not. But this one was a Christian. But,
It's just a good old-fashioned Christian sex party.
you know, hey, man, they all get down. But what's it called? So here's the thing. The reason it gets kind of crazy is the priests didn't want to let the paramedics in to help the guy. So that's where it gets dark. The priest who organized the gathering in his church apartment, identified by the diocese only as Father Tomas Z, gave a statement last month to Polish media that disputed details of what had happened, quibbling over the number of priests present at the time of the alleged sex party and saying that it is worth reading what the definition of an orgy is. That was his defense.
That's the argument?
I read it off.
Was there enough people to qualify for an orgy?
He's like,
Wow.
there's only like 4 of us there. That's not an orgy.
Oh, my God.
That's a foursome. But Gazeta Wyborczka, I can't pronounce these names, I'm sorry. A liberal daily newspaper reported in September that one of the priests at the gathering, held in a building belonging to the parish of the Blessed Virgin Mary of the Angels in the town of Dobrawa Gorniczka, had called an ambulance. Others at the party prevented paramedics from tending to the unconscious man, the paper reported, but the paramedics called the police and the priests relented. They had to call the cops to get in to help the guy who was at the priest orgy who overdosed on some sort of sex pills.
But maybe they thought he's in God's hands now.
They were praying.
Just
What if this was an exorcism gone wrong and now they lost? Pazuzu won.
okay. This is what I don't understand. How do you know? Who finds out it's a sex orgy? Was there like lube everywhere and toys?
Well, there was a male prostitute who had overdosed on sex pills.
I guess that gives it away.
Busted.
Yeah. Yeah, the Vatican took that guy's resignation, huh?
Yeah, so they didn't say why, but they accepted his resignation and
Jesus
kept it moving. Now, I saw one report that said that the bishop who resigned was actually directly linked to a cardinal who's like a secretary or an advisor to the Pope. So I guess this was a lot closer than we thought. And also, I did want to mention that the crazy violence in this diocese is like intense. So one of the other stories they talk about is in March 2023, the corpse of a 26-year-old deacon was found with injuries suggesting homicide. Local prosecutors said he'd been killed by a 40-year-old priest who then killed himself. So there's some craziness going on in this diocese, man.
What the hell? Yeah, this is pretty wild. And this is in Poland?
This is in Poland, yeah. This is really...
Poland gets down. I'm still trying to process how to feel about this guy, in this situation. I don't know. It's just a while. And it's another look on the church that's like...
So the Guardian's version of the story kind of focuses on the fact that Poland was one of the holdouts against secularization in Europe, which is secularization, for anybody wondering, is like people moving away from religion, stop like losing their beliefs. And Poland had been a holdout. But what happened was Poland went hand in hand with a very right-wing group, which did some extreme things that turned people off, and then you get,
so
gay orgy sex
They went
scandals.
extremely the other way.
Yeah, so now it's pushing people to, move away from the religion, and it's all self-inflicted. These types of scandals cause people to lose faith in these types of institutions. That's going to happen.
I feel like the Catholic Church and Christian religion overall specializes in how to make people lose faith.
Hypocrisy has become part of the stuff, but I think that's what gets highlighted the most. I think the belief systems there are really good and beneficial if you use them for the right things. These broader, larger institutions sometimes have greed involved. There's more power involved, so it can power corrupts, money corrupts. These types of things can affect everyone.
I still think that title of that article is probably the best title I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, the Guardian did not hold any punches back on that.
All right, let's move this one. So I came across this story that said Rakim and Scarface are finally going to get paid in full. And after looking into it, I thought it was fantastic what's going on. So this story led me back to what's called the Paid in Full Foundation. And to explain a little bit about it, I'm just going to read the statement right off of their website. This is from paidinfullfoundation.org. Okay, this is a statement from their site. Over the past several decades, hip-hop music and culture rose from a local niche New York art form into a global phenomenon. In doing so, it has created countless careers, many fortunes, and most importantly, gave hope and aspiration to a generation of young people. Unfortunately, many of the most impactful original artists never received recognition proportional with their exceptional contributions to arts and culture. The Paid in Full Foundation aims to rectify that through its grant-making program by both honoring the people who built hip-hop and enabling them to pursue their creative and intellectual pursuits for the benefit of society. To that end, Nas, Steve Stout, Ben and Felicia Horowitz invite you to the first ever Hip Hop Grandmaster Awards to recognize and celebrate two transformational artists, Rakim and Scarface. And it goes on to give you the date and time of the event.
Two very deserving pioneers. Scarface out the South, killing it. Rakim needs no introduction. One of the most influential rappers in history.
So I thought, first of all, what a great foundation honoring some of the older school artists, like they said, who maybe were the pioneers, didn't get the credit. You know, it's interesting. We've been talking about this topic for like 3 episodes now because, you know, like I said in the last one, the OGs are having a moment in time right now. So it's great to see it continued. I didn't know about this foundation, but I'm really glad to hear that it's out, you know, that it's out there. I just want to read one more statement.
That shit better not be a Ponzi scheme. This better not be any Cesar nonsense.
Yes, yes. So let me just read a quote from Steve Stout here. Myself, Ben Horowitz, Fab Five Freddy, and Felicia Horowitz, Ben's wife, we have a fund, a charity called Paid in Full. On November 17th, we're honoring those who've led the culture but have not received the financial rewards on par with their cultural contribution. And we're giving significant money, $500,000, and health care to these people who we believe were contributors who didn't get what they deserved. So that is amazing. $500,000 and health care. I mean, you can't, in America, that's just hearing you getting that is already massive.
It bothers me to hear that there's potentially hip hop pioneers that would need to have healthcare provided at that point. You know, like that should be something the label should just take care of everything on that, man.
Yeah,
you've brought them more than enough money for a little insurance package.
I don't think that's
not how.
I don't think that's how that's
works.
working. But you know, fantastic story. Shout out to all the people involved in the foundation. And shout out to the artists who are getting recognized with this. The article, just to put it out there, the article that I read on this was from Hip Hop DX, and they go on to mention that, you know, there's a lot of artists out there still who have not been recognized, and, you know, maybe should be. So hopefully this grows and is something that expands into more people. And like you said, doesn't end up being a Ponzi scheme. But I think with that lineup of names, we can trust that it's not.
Those are, real stand-up people. It seems like good members of the hip-hop like culture. So I think
members of the community.
Right. Hopefully it turns into something bigger and even more, because it's true. Like hip-hop it's a good year for hip-hop. It's with the 50th anniversary. You've got the museums opening up in New York, and you've got stuff like this, and
while we're
selling out tours and shit too.
While we're on the topic, just before we switch it up, I don't know if we mentioned it, but Andre 3000 is supposed to have an album coming out, which I'm super excited for. And in that same article, it says here that in other Rakim news, the legendary MC will be a guest on Will Smith's upcoming Class of 88 podcast, along with Queen Latifah, Public Enemy, Salt and Pepper, and more.
Ooh, that's a crazy combination of legends.
Some interesting things going on. Let's move it right along.
Can you dig it?
right, so I like to get some stories in that are on the informative side, and I like to kick it towards the political side. Now, like, I've had a lot of conversations with people that think there's this crazy crime wave going on, so I found an article that, because I just wanted to be like, relax, But this article is, Killings in the U.S. are dropping at a historic rate. Will anyone notice? By Dave Lauter, Lauter, if you want to look it up. Homicides in the U.S. dropped significantly in 2022 and have plummeted even faster this year, putting the country on track for one of the biggest declines in killing ever recorded, crime statistics show. If that comes as a surprise, you're not alone. Crime did rise nationwide in 2020 and 2021. The disruption caused by a deadly pandemic, a record increase in the availability of guns, a pullback of policing in some cities, and perhaps other factors combined to create a surge of homicides and other crimes. The national tide has started to recede, but public perception has not kept pace. So now I just pulled out some of the statistics to go with this, right? Because what you saw was, during the pandemic, there was an increase in violent crime, but there was a pandemic, there were lockdowns, there was a recession, essentially. People were desperate. So there were reasons that crime might be rising, but those reasons have passed now. The pandemic's over, the lockdowns are done, and what we saw was crime rates went back to where they were, essentially. Everything went back to normal. But during the pandemic, we were also following the Black Lives Matter protests, the George Floyd situation, and a lot of talk about new approaches to policing, defund the police arguments and stuff like that. And there was a huge push to blame the increase on crime to that movement, to BLM, and to defund the police. First off, if you look it up, the police were never defunded, or very rarely, in very rare instances. But a lot of places saw crime increase and blame defund the police, even though it never happened. But to go on, this is how the numbers have gone back to normal since the pandemic ended. Here we go. The FBI's annual report of the nation's crime statistics showed a 6% decline in homicides in 2022. The FBI data lags nearly a year behind reality. Jeff Asher is a crime data analyst whose website is a frequently cited source for this kind of information, and he says that so far this year, crimes have declined 11 to 12%. Now, the cities report crime faster than the rural areas, and rural areas don't see as big of drops. So he's projecting a 7 to 10% decline. And if it's 10% of a decline in homicide, that's the largest ever. That'll be a record. And also, I just wanted to throw this in because people might say, well, you said violent crime for one thing and homicide for this other. The decline goes beyond homicides. Violent crime overall ticked down in 2022 across the country. The FBI numbers showed returning the U.S. pretty much to the level of 2019 before the COVID increase. Literally has gone right back to the levels it was before the pandemic. So we kind of have a pretty good indicator of where the crime increase came from and why it's going back down.
Yeah, but one of the things that you'll hear, thrown back at you after that is, yeah, but in other crime, it's gone up.
So there is one example that I can mention. That's not retail thefts. I know a lot of people have seen a bunch of videos of like smash and runs and things, and big groups running into a place and running it out. That's not on the rise. The one they gave was car thefts. So automobile theft is up because a bunch of TikToks and YouTube videos are out showing how easy it is to rob Kias and Hyundais, they said.
Yeah.
And that has caused that crime to increase amid the other stuff dropping.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I can go in on this topic as well and say that a lot of people I talk to that I know have been under the belief that, like, New York specifically is experiencing this insane crime wave. And, I go in and out of New York. My brother works there.
I'm there every week.
My mom, they're in and out regularly. There never really was that crime wave. The subways got a little shitty for a bit, but they've always sucked. I don't know that it was so dramatically different. But just overall, the biggest increase that you saw was these weird articles coming out about a crime wave, and the statistics just weren't matching, so it really didn't make much sense there. But we're seeing again, just this is how it's rolled out. The crime wave, if there was one, is going down dramatically fast. So
yeah, and when they poll people, people just don't. People always, actually, there's only been like 4 years since Gallup has come out where people thought that crime was either level or going down. But crime has been pretty much dropping consistently for 20 years or so. It kind of leveled out now, so it's not dropping like that anymore. But there's been a long decrease in crime. Basically, the crack epidemic ends, and crime starts to decrease, and it has never really flipped that pattern of decreasing in terms of violent crime, particularly in the cities. You know, it's one of those things. They emphasize small areas or places where there is crime increase, where there are problems and issues to be addressed. But by emphasizing that, other people see it, and they take that anecdotal evidence and think that everything's bad. And I can give an example. After the BLM protests, when there was some rioting and looting in New York, but the way our friends were talking about it was like New York was on fire, and we were riding into the city to go to work the very next day, and it was fine. You know, it was clean where we were going. Yeah. Certain sections had things happen, but that doesn't mean the whole city is just under wrap. You know, it's a different thing, and people get the wrong idea because of what's reported, what's emphasized, and how certain types of crime stand out in your memory.
Yeah, that was true. There was one point where a couple of my close friends were talking to me about the crime as I was walking up towards 181st Street down, Wadsworth or something, and it was like a sunny, nice day, and I was just laughing about the whole thing. But anyway, that was an interesting topic. Let's move So I was gonna cover this story here, but I'm gonna skip that one for now. So
okay, get into the UFC and stuff.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this. I saw this headline, and like I always say, we throw one of these in there. But Anthony Pettis is going to be having a rematch with Beson Henderson. This is fantastic. Their fight is legendary. That's a Hall of Fame fight right there. Their original match, the jump off the cage kick.
Yep, the Showtime kick was
Showtime kick was born in their original fight. Yep. And now we're going to see it again years later.
Third fight. Pettis got him in an armbar in the rematch. So they fought for the WEC title, then they fought for the UFC title, and now they're fighting in Karate Combat.
Yeah, now this is going to be in Karate Combat 43. It'll take place in December, but I was super excited when I saw it just because of the two competitors going at it. And then also some of the names that they're in talks for to add to that card are great names. Jose Aldo, Luke Rockhold,
Darren Till,
Lyoto Machida, and Michael Venom Page, supposedly. But I've got mixed reports now saying that I saw something saying Michael Venom Page signed with UFC, but now I'm seeing that Karate Combat is trying to scoop him up for this event. So I'm not sure if that UFC news was premature.
I did see somebody say that it was premature. I can't confirm that though. I'm just going off Twitter.
So that may be the case, but.
Yeah, so it's really cool to see Pettis and Beson Henderson continue to have opportunities like this, because they were a part of a really dope era of the UFC and the WEC. They were the guys at the end of the WEC when it combined with the UFC. Those were the two guys right at the top. They were the ones we sat and watched to watch that main event, in the basement in one of our old houses. And then they got to the UFC, and one of them won the title, defended the title a few times, and it was back to Beson versus Pettis, and Pettis wins that one. They both were UFC champions, and then they went on to continue to have success. Beson Henderson in particular had a really nice run at Bellator, but now these guys who have been with us for years, they've kind of hit past their prime in MMA, They don't have that title run in them anymore. But maybe Karate Combat, which is a new developing sport, they can bring more eyes to this version of combat sports. They can help improve, their options, and they also get to get a bag and get respect for their art. So I'm really happy to see it.
Yeah, shout out to both those guys. And Anthony Pettis has done some amazing things. I mean, he recently fought what's his name in boxing, Roy Jones.
That's right,
and he won.
Yeah.
So pretty amazing stuff there. Was there something other on the fight tip you wanted to mention?
Yeah, so actually, I was really looking forward to next month's UFC is in MSG. It's in New York. I was pretty excited for it. And John Jones was supposed to fight Stipe Miocic. It was likely both their retirement fight. But this past week, John Jones tore his bicep tendon or tore something in his bicep. Or his pec. Was it his pec?
He tore the tendon that holds the pec to the bone.
Okay, so he tore his pec, which really sucks. He's out for at least 4 months, and Stipe's going to wait for that fight. So instead, they're getting an interim title fight, and it is Tom Aspinall versus Sergey Pavlovich. And I think if you're not a big fan of MMA, you might not be excited for this fight. It's definitely a letdown compared to, we get to see John Jones, the GOAT, but and Stipe, who's arguably the greatest heavyweight of all time. But I want to say these two guys are they got next in the heavyweight division. They're the future of that division, and they are two incredible fighters, and they deserve a lot of love. Pavlovich has knocked out 7 opponents in a row in the first round. We haven't seen him fight for about 15 minutes in 7 fights because he's just knocking everybody out. Tom Aspinall's only loss, he tore his knee in the first 15 seconds of the fight. He's won every other fight. He's crushed everybody. They both beaten elite UFC fighters. So I know it's a bit of a letdown as a big John Jones fan and having wanted to get a chance to see him, go out on top. But it's not a letdown in terms of I love to watch fights. I like the art, and I think these two guys are really going to be the flag bearers for a while, them and Cyril Gane, for the heavyweight division.
Well, I'm going to say this. This is absolutely not a letdown for me. I am way more excited to see this now. Don't get me wrong. I would have loved to see Jones and Stipe, but that was a goodbye fight for me. This is a hello fight. Yeah. This is going to crown the next champ, and in my opinion, the 2 best guys to be there to take that title. It's unfortunate the short notice that it's coming together with, but it's still, this is as close to 1 and 2 in my opinion, I think, and for hardcore MMA fans' opinion, as Volkanovski and Islam on the pound for pound list. This is like one of those, but for 205. These 2 dudes are the new generation coming up. Pavlovich has looked insane. Aspinall, I kind of had him as the next champ in my eyes, other than seeing what Pavlovich has done lately, which has just been insane. The guy's scary. I don't think anybody wants to get hit by that man. But now we're going to find out. So I'm excited. I'm more excited now because this is going to crack open the door. And I think there's a huge possibility we don't see, either Jones or Stipe again. So cross our fingers, MMA gods. Let's get that fight in next year. But we'll see what happens.
But I think the one thing about it is the heavyweight division flies wide open again. And you've got, these 2 are definitely the cream of the crop. You've got Cyril Gane, whose only losses are to Francis Ngannou and John Jones. So he's right back in the conversation. And Curtis Blades, who technically beat Tom Aspinall because he was the guy when Tom Aspinall tore his knee right away. So you've got 4 guys right up there at the top who all haven't fought each other, who could all put on entertaining matches, who have different clashing styles that are interesting. So it makes the heavyweight division very exciting after what, I'll be honest, it's been stalled out. Since Francis Ngannou left, we've gotten 1 title fight, and now we've got an injury. So, I'm a huge fan of John Jones, the mixed martial artist. I think he must be seen to be believed. He's so good. But I'm very happy to see that there's a path for the division to move on from him because he just casts a huge shadow over a division. There's something about that, he owns a division once he's in it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I completely understand, and I'm also excited to see the division move on. And we'll see too, because one other fight we're gonna get is that Pereira fight versus Yuri, and Pereira's walking around at almost 240, so that's heavyweight status, and the ability, the option for more heavyweights to go that direction. I think we're going to see more 205ers going to heavyweight at some point too. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, I remember saying that when John Jones went to heavyweight, that you'd see some guys move up to light heavyweight real quick after they found out he was moving. And it did start to happen. Israel Adesanya and Michael Pereira both made their moves, So I think we'll keep seeing that type of thing where the openings happen and where people see an opportunity to slip into a title conversation quick, they're always going to take that shot.
Yeah, man. Shout out to UFC 295 happening next weekend, I believe. I think we're going to wrap it up. That's about it. What do you got? Anything else?
Yeah, man. My only thing is I will continue to say that I always support whatever causes the least human suffering possible. And with the Israel-Palestine thing, I do think a ceasefire is the obvious thing. Hamas needs to release the hostages. Yes, both of those things can be argued for at the same time. A ceasefire, release the hostages. Hopefully the bombing stops because it looks pretty horrific.
Yeah, I'll just diddle the same thing. I'm just so disgusted with what I'm seeing right now that I don't even want to speak on it. But other than that, thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
This is the Fans Perspective signing off.
Can you dig it?
Listening to TFP, the Fans Perspective.